be a discussion throughout. There might be a decent amount of discussion.
Yeah, so
I'll do a brief overview.
overview and then.
So we are currently living under our 2021 charter. Let me send a link to this page in the notes as well, in case anybody else wants to. It might not be shared. Let me share it for a moment and then link. We are currently under the 2021 charter, which we did in 2021. That expires in February of next year. Sorry, what's that? All good? Okay. That expires in February of next year. So, 5 or 6 months from now. So before then, we need to take a look at our current charter, what we have, renew it. I'm assuming everybody wants to renew it here. See if we want to make any changes to it, whether there are any specs we either want to adopt from incubations, whether there are any specs we want to discontinue, etc. So I think it's a good time to kind of reevaluate what our deliverables are and what we see for ourselves over the next 2 years. Is it essentially?
Yeah.
Okay. So the current charter is linked from that document. You can see everything that's within the scope of it. It starts out with our scope, which kind of gives some of our mission statements, some of the things we want to focus on. A couple years ago, in 2021, when we were looking at this in 2020 and 2021, we did go through all of the in scope, out of scope, and make some modifications to some of the key topics there. We can reevaluate, some of the wordings here, some of the mission if we want. Although I think it's relatively appropriate for what we're focused on at the moment. The top 3 themes being measurement, scheduling, and adaptation. Adaptation. So I guess I would invite folks to look at the current charter to see if there's anything that they think is missing or inappropriate, then we can always reevaluate it for the 2023 charter. As far as specs go, we have a w3c.org/webperf page that gives you a very good high-level overview of all the specs that are currently within the charter. It's good to review that from time to time. There are a few things here that are changing and transitioning. For example, resource hits. I know that we discontinued this from in our 2021 charter. So at the bottom of our 2021 is listed as a discontinued spec. That's because we're moving that stuff to HTML. I don't believe that's complete yet. And I did notice, I was taking a look at all the repos to see if we discuss any of these items, and there's no current hints in the repo that this is happening. I'm not sure if we want to just wait until that's done before we would mention it, but for example, in the preload and page visibility repos, we do mention that the work has been transitioned to HTML. So there may be some work to do just in the repo after it gets transitioned to kind of wrap it up. Preload. Preload was discontinued as well in our 2021 charter. We have moved all of that text into HTML. The repo has been archived in GitHub, so you get a nice, this repository has been archived by the owner, it's read only, and the text describes how that has been moved into HTML. So I think this is a nice buttoned up archival of what the work was. It tells you where to go next. If you do look at the live document that people may have been referring to, it is now auto redirected to HTML as well. That's good. Page visibility. This is one we probably should discontinue in our 2023 charter because we have moved that work to the HTML. If you look at the archive, the repo for it, it is archived. However, I think that we should probably do a little bit of just one more commit or so, just to like mention what we're doing here, why it's been archived and moved to HTML. And if you look at the page, it does say it's discontinued, but it doesn't tell you why or where. I don't think. Oh no, I guess it does on here. So maybe we do or do not want to do a little bit of auto redirects or one more commit to the repo, just to mention why there's no more work in there on the README. So those are three things that are kind of moving out of our purview a little bit. We have a couple other specs that we were pushing to get towards rec. For example, beacon and cooperative scheduling of background tasks or request auto callback. We're thinking some of the other incubations might be appropriate to wrap into those instead of finalizing them towards rec right now. For example, for beacon, we have the proposals for the pending beacon or unload beacon. Seems very appropriate to consider pushing that into the beacon spec. Same thing with the cooperative scheduling of background tasks. There is the incubation for scheduling APIs that we could consider moving into a spec like that. Event timing and LCP, I know that we recently adopted those. They're not listed in our current charter, obviously, because that charter was from before when we adopted them last year or earlier this year, I should say. So we just want to make sure that they are officially adopted in, in the right visually way in the next charter. LCP could potentially incorporate some of the element timing stuff as well, since they're very linked together. Something for us to consider as a working group. And then we have the timing names registry. I was hoping to chat with Philippe a little bit more. He had mentioned yesterday how they have like a different process for registries, and we may want to like get that under that official process for adoption by the W3C for a registry.
Yeah, because right now it's in note, right?
Yeah.
Nick, you skipped paint timing. Was there just
nothing to? Yeah, I guess I had something there then. Well, one consideration would be, does something like LCP and or element timing further belong in something like paint timing as well? They are not today. I think for us to consider as a working group. And then we have a list of incubations. These are all in various different states. I was hoping to, as part of the discussion after this presentation, just talk about some of these and see if there are any interests or barriers to moving these forward. Specifically, I don't know that we want to get into any of these more without actually being able to have a discussion about them. So why don't we save that for actual chatting after we stop recording in a moment. Is there anything else from a high level to review at this point before we start chatting about things?
Interrupt maybe.
Yes, I will actually, Michael, if you don't mind. One thing that we are considering looking at is with the effort for Interrupt 2022, there's a newly initiated effort for 2023 to consider things maybe this working group might want to highlight from a performance perspective. So Michael's had put a few thoughts into that, so I'll pass it
Sure.
through.
So I have the slides from the breakout this week, which I was not able to attend. I'm not sure. Should I cast for a few seconds?
They're great.
Apologies. It's not coming through. So it looks like folks have kicked off the Interop 2023 effort. Certainly wasn't involved in the 2022 planning process. Just perhaps quickly, the goals of Interop in general are to focus on web platform tests and driving towards Interop across implementers on a few key areas. So this kind of summarizes how they prioritize the work that went into 2022. So they focused on developer surveys, usage numbers, and the number of bugs. And so that makes sense that those would be the focus areas. You know, there's demand is there, the usage is there, and work exists. So they cover kind of an update on what 2022 did, but they are now beginning planning for 2023. And there's a timeline about how to make proposals. So we don't need to get in the weeds, but I thought there were a few reasons why we might consider some at least soft participation in this effort in 2023. We might not be selected. There's this selection criteria, but first of all, I do think there is demand for the performance work that we do. There are significant usage numbers on some of the APIs that we provide. And yet there are bugs and interop issues. So both for us internally, I mean, we certainly do spend a lot of time on specification and interop, but maybe it isn't the number one top priority all of the time. Certainly this week, we've had a few fantastic conversations about things we can do to work on that. And so this would be kind of a narrowing of focus, especially on web platform tests, to sort of take it past that finish line. There is also somewhat developer confusion, demand. I think it fits well within this prioritization framework. The other reason perhaps is just to sort of signal to the community who's focusing on interop. There's a lot of attention on this effort, but you know, web performance is a part of the web platform. It is part of what we deliver to developers. The demand is there. It doesn't have to be a large effort, but I thought for both of those reasons, I thought it might be worth a shot to think about, you know, which things do we want to carve out? I had a few proposals myself, but mostly it's just, is it even a good idea to get started brainstorming on things? And perhaps that's enough. It could be fun.
Awesome, thank you. With that, do we want to stop recording and have a discussion?
I would stop.